with people. Okay. Um, and I will talk to people who may have some ideas about what to do with it after the meeting. Okay?
Yeah,
That sound good?
I'd
Okay.
be happy to be part of that
Okay,
discussion. Yeah.
good. I will rely on you, Ron. Okay.
Absolutely.
And David,
Okay.
Alan, he knows more tech than I do.
Yeah,
Great.
but you know the recording world much better than anybody else on this screen.
Okay, so because Jack is new, Jack, I'm going to have all of us introduce ourselves very, very briefly so you know who we are. And then if you would introduce yourself, that would be great. Okay. So I'm going to start kind of in order of people as they came in on the Zoom. So that means
Hmm. Oh,
Ron.
slight interruption first. Um, if you're recording, I think you should probably do gallery view. I believe
I'm
that's
in
what you
gallery
do.
view. I'm in
Okay,
gallery view.
good.
Yeah, but that means I need to stay. Well, yeah, I'm always in gallery view for open mic. I go to speaker view and so forth if we have a speaker,
Sure.
but we'll worry about that. Yeah, okay.
Another day.
Otherwise, okay. Okay, so Ron, you're up for your 60 to 90-second introduction.
I'll try to make it faster. Um, got out of Harvard class of 63, went immediately, like within a week, to WGBH, been in TV and video ever since. Still working in a way in the field because I'm volunteering primarily for a group called Volunteer Blue, which is obvious what kind of group it is, making videos as part of their video team. They get uploaded to social media. Hopefully, there'll be a little bit of influence on the midterms in a good way.
Great. Okay, Bill.
Bill Collins. I live in Aiken, South Carolina. Grew up in the Boston area, Harvard 63, like the rest of these people. Um, Navy 20 years, surface ships. Retired in 84 from the Navy, went to work for Westinghouse in Pittsburgh for a little while, then Savannah Riverside, Aiken, South Carolina, and that's where I'm living now with my wife. So that's my quick history.
Great. Okay, Alden.
Grew up in the East Coast in northwestern Connecticut on a farm. Lived in a number of different places around the country. Now live just south of San Francisco. And my wife and I have a fundraising consulting firm. We work with nonprofits.
Great. Okay, John Weiner.
Uh,
Weiner. How do you
Thank you.
pronounce your last name?
Wiener, thank you.
Okay, okay.
Jack, I live in Stamford in New York City. Um, in an early life, I worked in the Lindsay administration, New York City, then at McKinsey, and recently founded two healthcare companies.
Great. Okay. David Lelyfeld.
So Jack and I are friends. He knows me, but I'm in New York City, and I'm a historian of India. And Jack and I met through the Democratic Socialists of America.
John Woodford.
Um, Here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, grew up in Benton Harbor, Michigan. I've been in journalism of all sorts, and we have a Democratic Socialist running for mayor right now, and one running for the Senate.
Great. Okay. Jeff.
Hi, well, Jeff Fox. If I remember correctly, Jack, you and I were roommates in Havana at one point for a couple of nights, right? So I mean, we know each other from way back.
Do you want to say where you are now, Jeff?
Oh, I'm in southern Spain, the province of Almeria, and I'm trying to commit fiction through fiction. Commit politics through fiction. That is, I'm writing political fiction.
Right. Okay. David Allen.
I'm an Indiana farm boy who, of course, got Charles River fever and have never escaped except when I was briefly in the military in Concord, Mass. Had a pastiche of a life, business and government and academics, running around with the UN, among other things. And of late, whole focus on hoping we don't go back to war, which was the news this morning. Anyway,
Okay, Jerry.
I'm afraid we are back at war. I'm looking at the idiot on the TV right now. So
exactly,
I,
exactly.
I'm in Pasadena, California, grew up in all black DC in Northeast, Andover, Harvard, Columbia Law, then the Peace Corps in Cusco, Peru for a couple of years to work for the Department of Justice, left under the Nixon administration, couldn't stand it. Spent a few years with an oil company, then worked for this California state as a vice president or the vice chair of the state water board. And basically, at this point in time, I'm an environmental lawyer dealing in water quality.
Great, thank you. Cindy.
Yeah, Ellison Wardle, Cindy Wardle. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, Radcliffe class of 63. Then I was in the Peace Corps in Turkey, and then got a master's at the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. And soon after, I moved to Italy, where I live now in Rodin County. We produce wine. Since that loses money only, my husband had a business. But we still are producing the wine and selling it through Felsina.
Selling it through what?
A larger company, which actually sells in the States, called Felsina. It's
Okay.
Felsina. Starts with an F, like Frank or Frederick.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, George.
George Jones, class of 63. I was born and raised in northeastern Oklahoma. I'm an Okie from Muskogee. Currently living in Ann Arbor. So John and I hang out whenever we can. I got a PhD in biochemistry following Harvard and was a faculty member and academic administrator at first at Michigan and then at Emory University in Atlanta. And I still consider myself to be a boy scientist.
Very good. Hamp, just to bring you up to date, we're all introducing ourselves to Jack Hammond, who has joined us. And the task is to introduce yourself in 60 to 90 seconds.
I just stay behind a 120-car railroad train that goes through the center of Nashville for 20 minutes. I'm Hampton from West Hampton. Graduated Harvard in 63, PhD in psychology in 1978, and I'm still working as a psychologist, like Liz still is too, even though it changes now and then.
Thank you, Hamp. Okay, I'm Liz Morey, and I live right outside DC in Tacoma Park, Maryland. But I'm a Californian. I'm only here because that's where my kids and grandkids are. And I'm also a clinical psychologist, almost fully retired, very interested in trying to reverse what's happening downtown, very heavily affected by it in terms of my immediate family, and also very interested in exploring the past of my Maury family, who were major enslavers in Charlottesville, Virginia. So, Jack, tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you. It's very interesting. Very, very happy to meet you all and happy to see Jeff after a long time.
Yeah.
And if that's Marcy Benstock behind the
It
black
is.
square there, hello to Marcy.
Hi.
I am 63, like everybody else. I grew up on Long Island, moved to Virginia when I was in high school, lived there a couple of years, went to Harvard, went into the Peace Corps, went to Peru, where I was for 2 years, came back and got a PhD in sociology at the University of Chicago, moved to New York, taught at Columbia for a few years, and then taught at City University, Hunter College, and the Graduate Center for 40 some years, retired 3 years ago. And that's the external facts, but I am a sociologist. I spent a lot of my sociological career working on Latin America after my experience in the Peace Corps. And my last few years of teaching, I became very interested in environmental sociology, in particular degrowth, which part of the reason why David got in touch with me this week is that there's been some discussion of that on your email list. And it's a major subject field of study for me, but also a major passion. I believe that saving the planet and humanity from some of the major dangers that face us have to go through a tremendous reduction in our use of energy and materials. And parallel to that, there has to be an equalization because you can't degrow by making poor people poorer. You can only do it if you can assure the welfare of the population. And also, in terms of this group, the other thing that came up in your mailing this week is DSA, which is where I first met David. And I am active in a couple of things in DSA. One is the Degrowth Caucus, and the other is the campaign for uh, national public health, Medicare for all, or universal comprehensive medical service. And I'm doing some research on that from the standpoint of degrowth, how we could have a better medical care system if we degrew it, if we degrow it, not that it should be smaller or conversely that it should be bigger, but that it should be different. A lot of the ways in which it should be different will involve eliminating waste and eliminating private enterprise control over medical care. That's kind of where I've been going for the last several months. And I'm also active in the efforts that are happening here through DSA and through my union, the Union of Professors, it's called the Professional Staff Congress, the Union of Professors at the City University, where we are engaging, planning a program around this. Well, I guess that's it.
Okay.
Thanks,
More
Jack.
important things.
And I
So,
think it might be lovely if you would be a speaker for us, and maybe we can talk about that offline.
Good.
Okay, so what I'm going to try to do, because I know we're such a healthy, intelligent, and opinionated group. And I came into the meeting, at about 10 of 12 thinking, I just have to relax. So I'm pretty good at relaxing in situations like this. And so let's in fact do, the hands up, and I will call on people in order. And if somebody keeps raising their hand, then they'll be out of order. So the only other thing I want, Marcy, do you have audio at the moment?
Marcy, we don't see her either.
No, I understand that. Okay,
She's
she doesn't.
got computer problems.
Okay, I
Oh,
just wanted, I thought I heard her say yes when.
Yes, I did too.
Yeah, okay. But Marcy, we understand that you're listening, and that's fine. Okay, so I just.
Listen, I have to say one more thing, which is I have a doctor's appointment at 1 o'clock, so I'll be
Okay.
leaving in 10 or 15
Okay.
minutes.
Okay.
Do you have
Okay.
my email?
Uh, yes, I do have your email.
Okay.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. Okay, so we're going to start, and
Good.
please try to, be very, very intelligent about how long you talk. Okay, great. Okay, David Lillifeld.
well, I just wanted to mention that the guest next week, is it next week?
Yes, yeah.
Is Nick Freudenberg, who's a colleague of Jack, and I'm sure you know him, is going to talk about his recent book on health care activism in New York City. He wrote a more general book just a couple of years ago, a really good book of a critique of the American healthcare system. So I think it would be quite relevant to our interests. Nick is a friend of mine in New York. He didn't go to Harvard. He was expelled in 1968 from Columbia and for occupying the building and in that famous protest. But he's really a very interesting person. Um, uh, just to start the ball running, I want to pass it off to what Ron raised, which is the issue of DSA. And maybe we could think, because for this group, it might be the most relevant issue, is what are the consequences of DSA's new prominence on the political scene, which was not the part of DSA that I was interested or involved in, but in electoral politics. What are the consequences to the overall political scene and the Democratic Party and all of that?
Okay, Ron.
Okay, just because David mentioned my name, I passed on the article because I found it quite disturbing, and had no way of judging whether it was a good article, a bad article, biased and everything like that. It's a pretty simple article which came down on DSA for being rigid, extremist, shutting down voices of people who disagreed, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into detail. The article is pretty short. You can read it if you want. But then John Woodford pointed out that the author was already known as a right-winger when he was in Michigan. And as I said to Liz before the session, I tend to believe the last person who spoke to me. So I believe the article is probably right, and then I believe Woodford was right. And so I'm here basically to listen, and whoever speaks last will be the person I believe.
You should be president.
Yeah, let's go in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Jack.
Yeah, my quick response to that article. First of all, the question of Palestine, Gaza genocide, divides the left strongly and divides the population of the country more than it has in previous years. And I think that there are a lot of issues with DSA in terms of its position on Palestine and Gaza, but it's there was a period when Jamal Bowman, who was elected congressman from the Bronx a few years ago, was expelled from DSA. At least he was expelled by the national body because he met with some Israeli officials when he went to Israel, which I found pretty disturbing. But he was not expelled by the New York chapter. The New York chapter didn't have the same kind of problem with him. And that is an issue. That clearly is an issue. And, the newly elected congresswoman happens to be my congresswoman and also David's, and has some very indiscreet tweets 10 years ago and some others more recently. This is a problem. I don't think it's a problem of the scope that has been raised. But I would also say from my own experience with DSA that it's a big tent organization, and a lot of what its different offshoots do is quite independent of what positions are taken by the national leadership. And I'm satisfied to continue being in it because of the activities that I'm involved in, which aren't necessarily compromised by the question of Palestine.
Okay, great. David Allen.
My sense is that we find ourselves in the middle of this discussion because of, shall I say, a conundrum that presents itself currently with the Trump mess. Gee, we need radical change, but most of the country is not radical. So how do we get change? And DSA comes into the crosshairs because they're seen as over on the radical side of this, as we've already seen with both attacks and support. Of course, the piece that I wrote in response to all of this was in aid of trying to find a way through this. I won't flog it. You've had a chance to read it. The proposition is simply that there is a way forward if we will address what are the underlying issues, namely the ridiculous, absurd concentration of wealth, so that most of the country is living paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm.
Okay, Camp.
Um, I'd like to say that the article you sent out did have a big effect on me, Ron, in terms of trusting DSA people, even though I'm intrigued with Mandami. And here in Nashville, I'm in a group like this one. It's uh, almost all white, and it's people that were in the civil rights movement, largely in the South. Yeah, mostly in the South. And there was a DSA member in it who was a very ideological uh, pain in the ass. Uh, so that's a sample of one. I tend to think it's a good idea, but it is hard with that kind of propaganda going on. It is hard to trust people, whatever your instincts are.
Okay.
Well, you should just believe the last person you speak to.
Okay, we don't have any more raised hands. Anybody want to raise their hand?
I'll raise a hand.
Okay, good, John.
Yeah, why should we accept the terminology and definitions of people who are really against any kind of change that would affect the rich adversely? I mean, say something, oh, something's left, something's radical. Well, isn't it what they're doing to the Supreme Court is radical? You can call anything radical. So the terms are absurd. So I think we should be looking at programs and needs and policies and how to affect them rather than being so gullible as to, accept the terminology as we're being given it by the Trumpers or mass media or anyone else.
Right.
They're called something radical. What doesn't, it's a completely empty term. What's it going to be filled with?
Well, radical means very far from my position.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a different kind of medical system, someone's going to call it radical. The insurance companies and those that they are paying off. So, yeah, well, we need radical change in a lot of areas. Changes, in effect, radical anyway.
Yeah.
Is it going to be radical bad or radical good or?
It's going to be rad.
Yeah.
That's rad.
I know. Okay, George.
So I'd like to echo, I think, in a sense, the comment that John just made. It seems to me that the issue is what the individual candidates say they stand for. That what we need to do is to look at the people who are running for offices in the various constituencies that we represent and that are represented for us, and decide on the best people who are going to advance the causes that we think are important. I think that's the challenge that we face, for example, with the candidates that John referred to, who are running for office here in Michigan in the next few weeks. And it's the same challenge we're going to face with people who are running for office in Michigan in November.
Okay, David Liliefeld.
Yes, a lot of this, we're old enough to remember red baiting and the McCarthyism and so on. And the Democratic Party was called by McCarthy 20 years of treason and such. This is all the same stuff. And of course, Trump is was the apprentice of Roy Cohn. I mean, there's a direct line, and I'm sure he was raised in a McCarthyite atmosphere. In fact, I'm one of the people who got into DSA in the wave that Bernie Sanders started in 2016. There are a lot of people who were there in the 80s, but I wasn't. Bernie Sanders, to call Bernie Sanders a radical, only in America, I would say. Medicare for all is a very modest proposal. compared to even what they have in France or any European country.
Right.
But my experience, I was in what was called a political education group that broke up for personal reasons and not any good reasons, actually. But there were a lot of heavy duty Marxists in it, and I'm a bit of a Marxist myself. And we ran programs, public programs, introducing what is socialism and such in a very orthodox way. But we had really good discussions and good readings. We had reading groups and all of that sort of thing. And it's through that group that finally, at the end, I encountered Jack and learned about degrowth and what that meant, which was kind of new to me, although it echoed in a way things from way back of things I picked up from Galbraith when he talked about the affluent society and all of that sort of thing. And so I found that very attractive. And there were a few in our group, as it was dying out, the working group, who were seriously doing work along with Jack on degrowth. But not everybody who is in DSA is for degrowth and so on. It is a very, as Jack said, a big tent, and we have Zoran Mamdani, who is only in America would be considered radical. Again, the same thing. He's a very competent and both as a politician and now it seems as an administrator in New York, and that's a great breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, he was born in Uganda and can't run for president.
Alas, alas. David Allen.
Numerous wonderful tendrils in that, David. Thank you. Don't want to close any of those off, though I will go back to where you triggered me, red baiting. And Trump has made it comical now, suggesting the threat is communism.
Right.
Anybody who knows anything about it knows that is just bananas. Yes, he'll have some responses over in his uneducated MAGA crowd, but beyond that, I would notice where I think the rubber bites the road here is not in these individual elections in quote deeply blue states. We can get DSA candidates elected. This just obviously coming to the fore now, and it looked like it's going to be shockingly broad. Issue is when we move across jurisdictions to a national election and we've got to elect the next president. How do we get these quote radical ideas out there in a fashion that get us a charismatic leader who actually will see some results? And that's where it strikes me our requirement is to find a message around a few key items that will appeal very broadly and that are not seen as radical. Let the Medicare for All come in after we get that person elected. Incidentally, I, of course, am beneficiary of America's great experiment with single payer, VA. You just paid $30,000 for me to get this hand steady, to give you an example. And it works fabulously here in Boston. It is remarkable.
Oh, I want to hear more about that, David.
Okay, I'm next.
Great.
And Jeff, make sure you raise your hand when you're talking, okay?
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm wondering, and I'm just going to completely derail the conversation here, hopefully not totally, which is thinking about an experiment which is happening in front of our eyes at the moment about who is going to replace, what's his name?
Graham
Graham
Plattner.
Plattner
Plattner.
in Maine, because I think there we have something playing out in real time about, I don't know, factionalism, lack of factionalism. Is it going to be more progressive? Is it going to be less progressive? And I want to raise that because I think it is, something that we're looking at right now, which brings some of the issues that we're talking about, I think, right into the present moment. So if we want to talk about it, great. If we want to leave it alone, that's fine. That's me. Ron.
Okay, well, I think this is relevant to, at least tangentially relevant to what you just mentioned, Liz, which is, there's several things at work here at once. One of them is our values. If you're for, education, that everybody has a right to education and healthcare, that there should be some form of distribution of wealth, however it's accomplished, that there are no people who are living below a dignified line in this, in this country. You could go on and on. These are our values. You can map them onto what the Republicans say, what the Democrats say, what the Democratic Socialists say, and you say, oh, I'm kind of with that party. However, we have midterms coming in. We have people like Graham Plattner and whoever's going to replace him. And I think just looking no farther than the midterms, I would kind of park my ideals in a convenient parking spot and say, whoever can beat the Republicans and help turn Congress for the next couple of years and help thwart what Trump is doing, I don't care about much else. I mean, a rape, rape things again. I mean, he seems to be a terrible candidate. He probably wouldn't even have won. You have to have, I would vote for him knowing what I know now. But I think at the moment, the main thing, if we want an America that has a decent chance of surviving with some of our values, hopefully more of them, then it's a matter of being very pragmatic in this election, including finding winnable races, and supporting those candidates. And there are organizations that have that pick out winnable races for the Democrats. I'll come up with a name in a moment of one that was mentioned to me, because I personally think that's the way to go.
John.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. We're working off what David L. had mentioned a while back. First of all, Mayor Mondani is probably the most prominent DSA politician around, and I know his administration, and they are very, very, very competent people and veterans of city administration, and I think that the policies that this administration is following are policies that, in fact, would be fine on a national stage. So I think it's important in the debate here to get down to the actual facts about policies that are being followed by GSA politicians who are in office. And I think when there is a careful review of those and careful thinking about those, they should be very attractive to most Americans.
Great, great. Thank you. Jerry.
Let me go back to what Ron was saying, because I think I'm in agreement with Ron. I'm going to have to put my ideals kind of in the back closet at this point in time. I really regret to say it, but I think we're going to need a moderate white male in many of these races if we're going to succeed. And that disturbs me, but I think that's realistic at this point in time. And then secondly, as far as Platinum is concerned, maybe I missed the news, but best of my knowledge, he hasn't resigned yet. He's under a great deal of pressure to do it. And the headlines this morning are saying he's trying to put his thumb on the scale as to who's going to replace him. But the clock is ticking. I think he's got until the 13th to make a decision as to whether or not he's going to drop out. And I certainly hope he does. Um, there are a plethora. I've talked to some friends in Maine. There are a plethora of candidates that uh, are possibilities to replace him. I think as many as 8 or 9, but no one, to
Wow.
the best of my knowledge, has leaped to the forefront at this point in time, including the former governor.
Okay. I'm glad you're talking to people in Maine. I wish I had people in Maine
Yeah.
to talk to. John Woodford.
The thing about Plattner and why he was really attacked is not the fact that he was accused of rape, because Trump was accused of rape, and even by his former wife for a while, and by 25 other women of various other sexual offenses. So I think that needs to be brought up. Apparently, only in some quarters is this a disqualifying factor in making someone politically electable and acceptable. The the thing about Plattner not to ignore is the fact that he excited great masses of people who weren't voting in Maine, who weren't interested, and he expressed their interest. And I don't think that's true that only a moderate white male can win votes there. We see people around the country, women and black men and others winning elections here and there with decidedly what would be called, progressive platforms. So I think we need to remember that we're always being towards caution to go to the right, but who's broadcasting and amplifying and promoting? Usually it's people who are defending the status quo. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the Communist Party website the other night, and they were lambasting Trump for his anti-socialism, red baiting stuff. They didn't say anything about the Democrats. The Democrats officially denounced socialism maybe a year and a half ago in the Congress. The Democratic, what I call the war Dems, passed a resolution, and they're condemning socialist ideology. Why aren't they being, condemned for that? So we have a bigger problem than just the Republicans. We have a problem with a Democratic Party that's beholden to all sorts of moneyed interests for those who are in office, and just looking at it as a question of white male identity or tilting to the right or the center and all that, it really does distract us from looking at what do these people actually stand for.
Liz, let me jump the line just so I can respond to what John was saying.
Okay.
I think saying a moderate white male is not necessarily going to quote the right. I'm saying moderate. And there certainly are many areas in the country where women and more socialist-minded people will win elections. But for the vast majority of elections, I think you're going to need a much more moderate person. I would love to have a black woman. I would love to have a black male or a Hispanic male. But
I don't care about the identity, Jerry, but the Bernie had a great following. As a matter of fact, it was the Democratic Party Central Committee people who rigged stuff against Bernie, who was popular all over the country.
Yeah, but Bernie didn't win. So that's exactly my point. So and in Maine, I think we're probably going to have someone that's a little bit more moderate. So, and again, a moderate white male is not right as far as I'm concerned. So I will shut up.
Okay. Aldrin.
Well, following up on what Jerry and Ron were saying, I mean, in general, I really believe that we don't make progress rapidly. I mean, it takes a long time. And so you need a bunch of people who are just a little bit to the left of center to move things slowly. Now, you also need some wackos out there saying stuff that nobody believes. I mean, there were people saying, for Christ's sake, that women should vote for years, and nobody believed that bullshit. I mean, that was nonsense. And they believed that slavery should be abolished. Nobody believed that bullshit. That was nonsense. And that gays should be able to marry. Nobody believed that stuff, but you needed a few wackos out there sort of saying some of that stuff. But they're not going to initially get elected. What you need is very slow movement. And so I would agree with what Jerry was saying, that you need somebody, I don't know about race or gender or whatever, but a little bit to the left of center to sort of slowly move forward and then continue to move. Right.
Hamp.
Um, I was sort of intrigued with Plattner's candidacy for a while, and then I decided he was a big liar. With his wide open eyes and just looking so innocent there with anything that came along. But I also decided he was probably the best person for the job there, and that I would have voted for him there. And also the this may be dated, Liz. Maybe you know more about it than I do. But in on the MMPI scale, there's a 4-9 scale, which is like sort of sociopathic and energetic, and that applies to most politicians, most psychologists, most policemen, and most crooks.
How do they define that, Hamp, on that scale? What does it mean?
Um, Look it up. It's what you see in a lot of politicians.
It's self-report. Yeah, it's self-report. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
David Lelyfeld.
Well, I wanted to point out that Barack Obama won overwhelmingly. He is the most successful politician of the 21st century. He still is the most popular. I don't. I was disappointed in many of the things he did, but he certainly was a successful politician and remains so in some ways. And as he said at one point, if it weren't for the 2 terms, if he had chosen to run, he would have certainly won. So that I don't know. That it seems disproves the notion that a black candidate can win, and I think the same probably could be said about a woman, and so on and so on. There is this performative side of candidacy. Obama was an incredible speaker and orator, and what that has to do with what one does as a as an administrator is in government is a somewhat different thing, and how one controls the various multiple uh, personnel and departments and so on of government is a very different thing. But you have to win the election first, and I imagine there are people out there who can do it. I just want to say one more thing. There was an item in the Times today or yesterday about the leader of the Maine Democratic Party, who probably will play a crucial role in deciding who Plattner's successor is if Plattner drops out. And he was a Bernie Sanders delegate to the UN, to the Democratic convention, and is clearly on the more progressive side in Maine politics. So I think it should be possible for the Democrats to come up with somebody in Maine who has the same policies as Plattner, if that turns out. Whether that person can beat Susan Collins is another question. And that probably has something to do with personality and all the basically irrelevant things that people use to decide who they're going to vote for.
David Allen, I'm going to jump the line for a second just because.
Please do, please do.
So I'm resonating with a couple of things. One is who can win, which I think is a pretty common theme here. And the other is to look specifically at the policies of, whoever the candidate is. And I just want to say, here I am, I'm a woman, I'm a feminist, I have a lot of feelings about sexual assault, etc. Fortunately, that's never been part of my life, and I feel very fortunate about that. But I was really having an internal debate about if Graham Plattner remains the candidate, would I support, I'm not voting in Maine, would I support him? Because if he's a viable candidate, how do I feel about that? And for me, given my set of values, given, who I am, for me to even entertain that thought, I think is exceedingly odd. And I just want to put that out there in terms of who do we support? And of course, again, it occurred to me, we've got a president, who's, we don't even want to think about, his sexual activities. Okay, David Allen.
And that highlights, Liz, that we on this side of the aisle are different from those folks on that side. We actually are going to throw out somebody who's just clearly unacceptable when it comes to that, even if it's a few instances rather than 25 or some such thing. I actually saw on CNN the Secretary of State in Maine, who of course is responsible for the elections there, and is one of the potentials to be a candidate. I have to say, she was very, very presentable. It'll come down to, I think, what John has raised. Can she bring out to vote a set of people who ordinarily don't vote? That's probably going to be necessary for her to take down Susan Collins. Could I go to what I consider a direct statement of what pieces I'm hearing here, though I grant I'm building on something I said earlier. I think the question is, can we get away from labels? Can we somehow or another sneak under the edge of this thing and not be stuck with labels, radical, socialists, right, left? Can we instead, Liz is shaking her head, and I'm afraid she's probably right about that, sadly, but can we instead, and Ron himself pointed out, for him, the issue, and I think for most of us, the issue is getting rid of these skunks who currently have got control. So by what ledger domain can we figure out to do that? Well, you heard me argue that if we'll pick out two or three or whatever, and of course it's not us, but that can we get the word out? We pick out two or three things that will have very broad appeal. Yeah, there is left and there is right, but from left through to right, then let me not get some results. Enough.
Ron.
Yeah, speaking, I mean, things are ambiguous and we don't know the future. If it would come down to, let's say with Graham Plattner, let's say he would stay in, as terrible as he may be, but we would know in advance that if he won against Susan Collins, the Republicans would lose control of the Senate. Then you look at the consequences of voting for this bad guy and the consequences of having a Senate that can thwart Trump. But you don't know because some other race may go another way and maybe,
Right.
So, so it's there's no way you can simplify to a certain point, but no further. I think somebody once said that. And I think there was one other thing. Oh yeah, the organization I was wanted to mention was Force Multiplier, and that was recommended to me by somebody who's definitely not like a centrist Democrat. He's a lifelong Michael and Sarah. Some of you know him, and
Definitely
he was
not
saying they're a
on
good
the right.
organization.
Michael is definitely not in the center.
Right. And so he recommended that yesterday, and they're supporting Democratic candidates. You can just look at their website, forcemultiplier.org, and you see what they're doing. They support um, they try to elect Democratic majorities. They try to activate voters, and they try to fight autocracy. Including learn about our groups that protect elections nationally, et cetera, et cetera. So, there are a lot of things there that one can do if one thinks along those lines.
Yeah. What's the view from Aiken, South Carolina?
Well, I'm hoping to beat Lindsey Graham.
Here,
There's a
here.
woman, there's a
Not
woman
bloody
named
likely.
Annie Andrews who's actually raising a fair amount of money. And Lindsay seems to be worried about Annie Andrews. And so I'm supporting her. And I'm hoping we can beat Joe Wilson. That's a long shot. Congressman Joe Wilson. He's my congressman, I'm sad to say. And and he's got an opponent, a young black man named oh, come on. Oh, that's terrible. It's terrible. I can't think of his name. Anyway, he's a very articulate young fellow. I don't know what kind of chance he has. There's signs for Joe Wilson and Andrew Wilson running for governor, the son of Joe Wilson running for governor. So it's a tough thing, but I'm hopeful.
Good.
Are you in North or South Carolina?
South Carolina, Aiken, South Carolina.
Very definitely the South.
Very definitely the South. There's been a lot of influx of people from other parts of the country over the past few years. The population has increased very dramatically. So it's not entirely the way it used to be. And what effect that will have, I don't know. But we've got a fairly,
Includes carpetbaggers like you, right?
yeah, right. It includes carpetbaggers like me. Sure. I mean, I'm this guy from Massachusetts, but we still have the sons of the Confederate veterans here and the daughters of the Confederacy, and we have monuments to the Confederacy, although they don't get a lot of attention. A big public activity here in Aiken is the reenactment of the Battle of Aiken, which occurred during Sherman's march from Savannah to Columbia. And a detachment of Sherman's army went off toward Augusta, Georgia, sort of, and went through Barnwell and Aiken and so on. And fighting General Joe Wheeler came out of Augusta, Georgia, with a significant force and defeated this sally from Sherman's army, and that gets reenacted every year. The battle.
Oh dear.
Said to be the last Confederate victory of the war.
You have that lawyer who was convicted for murdering his wife.
Yeah.
And the case has been reopened. Such a tale. It brings home what Tennessee Williams would have written a play about. My Lord.
I mean, generally speaking, it's a fairly peaceful place here. But there's all these undercurrents. It's very, very interesting.
You do have Charleston, which is one of the finest hot spots in the world.
I'm about 2 hours from Charleston. Well, it's interesting. The police chief of Charleston a few years ago was a black Jew.
Lord.
Good. Okay, we're up at 1. I'd love to hear from anybody else who wants to make sure they get their 2 cents in. Oh my God.
I just want to remind people, because I'm was pushing for this, that Nick Freudenberg is going to talk next week, and
Okay.
I hope others will join us too for that.
Good show, David.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And
Thank
all new members are welcome.
Okay.
Yes.
And thanks, Liz, for hosting again.
Provided they have a green card or something.
Class of '63.
What about a red card?
Right.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, wasn't that poetic,
Oh,
Justin?
I don't even
Oh
I
my
don't even
goodness.
want to think about it. No, no.
It certainly made me view the game differently than I would have.
Yeah.
You think, well, this is going to defeat
You and
Trump.
the rest of the world.
Pissed off Trump so badly, he decided to start the war again against the Iranians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right. Okay, so on to the whoever wins the World Cup, and
Yeah.
I'll see everybody next
Well,
week.
wait a second. Do we have
Yes.
any big soccer experts who know or are for a certain team? Who's the best team?
Well, right
I
now,
have no
Argentina.
idea.
Argentina.
What I want to do on YouTube, though, is watch the last few minutes of the last Argentinian one, which I gather was just
Right. It
absolutely
was amazing.
spectacular.
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay,
And
so
I
yeah.
just
we're,
thought of the name of the guy that's running against Joe Wilson. Is a young
Okay.
fellow, African American. His name is Zion Khalifa.
Oh my goodness.
And his name, I asked him about his name, and he said he grew up in Aiken. He's a native of Aiken. And he said his name was given by his father. He didn't want to have his father's name was Williams, I think, who was the name of the slave owner that owned the family back in the day. And his father did not want his son to have the name of the slave owner, so he gave him the name of Khalifa, which is an Arabic word meaning caliph or leader. And his mother, who was a biblical fellow, named him Zion Khalifa.
wow. All right.
Great name.
That's wonderful. That's really
Let him be elected.
Yeah.
Let it
I hope so.
happen.
yeah. I
All
think I'll
right.
send him a couple of dollars. Yeah.
Right,
There you
right.
go.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Okay.
Until
Everybody
next
have a
week.
good week. And
Thank you.
see you next
See you
week.
next
See you in a
week.
week.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye,
Liz.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz.
Okay.
Marcy, come on
Oh.
in next.
Let's see. I'm going to stop the recording.